Today, I'm honored to welcome actor, author, and speaker Rob Ekno. Rob's journey from addiction and homelessness to award-winning storyteller is nothing short of inspiring. With 33 years of sobriety and a passion for encouraging others, Rob shares how faith, resilience, and creativity has transformed his life. Rob, welcome to my show. Thank you so much for being a guest. I have been looking forward to this for forever.
Beautiful. And a beautiful ride out to the studio, too. It's amazing out here in East Tennessee.
Yeah, it is. And it's dark, and I don't do well after dark. So I want to jump right in and talk about when I met you and how I met you. It was just, I say like by accident, like with Susan and Matt, but there's no accidents or coincidences with God, and you know that. We're going to talk about that. But anyway, I met you at Rise Up back in June, and that is the huge Christian event that my producer Adam holds each year. And you do the Knoxville International Christian Film Festival.
Correct.
And Adam said, hey, you might want to go up there and meet that guy. He would be a good guest for your show. So, yeah, and that's how we met.
Yeah, you came up and introduced yourself, and Aya and some other folks as well. So it was very exciting, because it was funny because speaking of Adam, we had lunch not all that long ago, right? And we were chatting about the upcoming Rise Up in a few months in April, and he was talking about how we didn't get a lot of promotion and stuff like that, and it was like because nobody really knew what was going on or what somebody was going to bring to the table and stuff. And it's interesting because he knew. Right? He didn't know what you were going to, like all of us didn't really know each other all the time. You and Adam did, but I didn't. And so now that's what's happening. And when you say Rise Up Con, our friend Dr. Taffany Williams up in Murfreesboro, she said to me the other day, she says, whatever you do, you need to make sure you keep this festival going. Yeah. She says, because between you and Rise Up Con, you have brought more filmmakers and creative Christians together, TV show hosts, right? Than you have any idea, Rob, of the people that are now collaborating and working on projects, and even for you, guests on your show to share the goodness.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's like, and I love that. Like, I always think about, I think back in my life and the times where I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know where I was going, but God, he looks from above and he sees this big picture and he knows, and we don't need to know. We just need to be ready to go when he says go, and then he goes, hey, Adam, tell Christy to go meet Rob. And I'm like, hey, Rob. And that was my first time really jumping out and networking, and I was a nervous wreck. I was like, hey, Rob, I'm Christy Adams, and, blah, blah, blah. But I was nervous, but I did it. And, God has opened a lot of doors since then. But, we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about you. So you are.
But can I share something?
Yeah.
Hopefully Christy does not hit me on this one. But because of that, and I'm just doing what God asked me to do. Right? As Taffany will tell you, I just keep saying yes, so he keeps hitting me with one project after another. Same thing with you, clearly. But the reality is, because you came up and introduced yourself, we now had a contact. You then invited me a short while later out to lunch. And I got to meet with you and your friend author, Amy, the author, and your wonderful son, right? And we had this wonderful little experience together. And you said to me, Rob, I have been watching you, and you keep having one blessing after another, after another, after another. And you said, how does that happen? I said, because I just say yes when God. And you asked me about this show in particular. And I said, Christy, you took yourself off the air for a while because some things had happened and life had happened, and surely many people would have just given up. But I could see you were not a quitter. Right, you were just in the middle of a different time, and you were wondering, where am I? Am I in the valley, or and what was the thing I said to you?
Do your show.
I said, if you want your East Tennessee to grow in the manner that you want to serve and honor the Lord, then your show has to be the staple of this network. And look at where we are today. You're doing your show just a couple of weeks later, basically. This is so awesome.
Yeah, I love that. You encouraged me so much that day. I won't lie. I did go home, and on the way home, I was crying. I told my son, I said, I think that guy hates me. because you were so blunt. I was like, and I said, I made a fool of myself at lunch. I think he hates me. He was so blunt. But then I realized I talked to Amy, and she's like, I think that's that's just who he is, and that's just who you are. And sometimes we just need that kick in the rear and that tough love, because I love my show, and
Yes.
God has given me my show. And I was talking to my son, before I started with Adam 3 years ago, back in 2023. Well, so I did a show in 2022 in Dallas, just for a short-lived time, and then I started with Adam in 23 and 24 and now 25, so 3 years,
Wow.
And so I let circumstances and other things, come along and cause me to get busy with that and kind of leave my calling. And, isn't that what just thought about Mary and Martha did? Like, one of them was really busy with the housework, and Jesus
Yep.
was like, hey, and then the sister, I think it was Mary, was mad at Martha, or Martha was mad at Mary.
Yes.
And she said, why don't you help me? And Jesus was like, she's doing what she's supposed to be doing.
Right.
So I got busy with the other stuff, trying to do, when I should have just been over here walking in my calling.
Well, if you remember, I specifically, before I said anything, and your wonderful son can be the testament to this, right? I literally said to you, I said, do you really want me to tell you the truth?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I asked before I gave it to you.
You did, yeah.
Because we appreciate, if we're working for the Lord, we appreciate somebody who's willing to call us out and say, Rob, you're not doing your best right now. I can see more in you. Christy, I can see more in you. Yeah. And that was the biggest compliment that I could actually give you, that your show was what the network, remember I said, like, all the different big networks had a good morning show or evening news or like 60 Minutes, those staple shows. You are the staple. And so you're the foundation of East Tennessee TV. Yeah. So it builds off of you, your energy, your spirit, your love of the Lord, your goodness of the guests that you bring in here, right? And so this needs you. This is your assignment from the Lord.
Yeah.
So sometimes, remember, Jesus flipped over a couple of altars when people, right? I was not rude to you, right? I asked you, can you handle the truth? If you want the truth, I'll tell you. Yeah. And here we are now, and we're doing this amazing show, and you got all these guests lined up. So there you go. Yeah, what needed to be done was done.
Yeah, absolutely. And no, you weren't rude.
No.
You weren't rude, but I was just like, wow, because usually I was just like, well, I don't know. I guess I just had allowed the enemy to just cause me, like I said, to get busy on the side. And then I just needed that wake-up call to go, hey, wait a minute. He is right. I do need to get back to my show. And I look at all the guests that I've had in the last, 8 weeks, and all the guests I'm going to have that people don't even know about yet. Yeah. So anyway, but let's talk about you.
All right.
So you are an award-winning author, producer, actor. Listen, you were on news radio for 4 seasons.
Yes, yeah. I was the only actor that had a part on Phil Hartman's last show. Yeah. And we actually took a picture, and it's in one of my other books, Cruising Toward Heaven, Navigating from Rough Seas to Miraculous Adventures. That's actually my life testimony. And Phil and I had a 20-minute conversation before that last show. Obviously, neither one of us knew it was going to be his last show. But the reality is everybody knows, it was public knowledge that he was having a challenge with his wife and sobriety and stuff. And he had just told me, and I had 5 years sobriety at the time. So we had this chat, and he had told me I'm going to have to, unfortunately, move on from my wife. And he must have told her that the night she was out and whatever. And unfortunately, right before that, Phil was a very humble guy. It was just wonderful, man. He always treated me so well. He was just wonderful. Treated everybody well. He was wonderful. But we had never taken a picture because he was not a big picture-taking guy from SNL and all this stuff. And he's like, Rob, I'm blessed that I get to do what I want for a living and feed my children. And so he never took pictures. But we had the outfits on. It was called The Sinking Ship. What if news radio was on the Titanic and it was sinking, right? And so the wardrobe people literally got us the wardrobe from the Titanic movie. Wow. So Phil and I are sitting there like you and I are, and we're behind the set, and we're looking so good. And I said, Phil, we got to at least take a picture. And he's like, yeah, you're right. Let's go. So we got one of the camera guys came over, and we got a camera guy to take a picture. And so that's in the book as well. But that was a blessed experience that the Lord gave me. Yes.
Yeah. So you've worked with some pretty big actors. Dean Cain is one of them. We were just talking about him a few minutes ago. Eddie McClintock. So you had, 30 years in Hollywood, right?
31 years in Hollywood, yes.
And you left Hollywood and moved to Tennessee. Yep. So what caused you to want to leave all that? I mean, you were obviously doing pretty good. I mean, you were on a hit series. Yeah, that ran for 5 seasons, working with big name actors. Why did you just say, I'm giving it up and I'm going to East Tennessee?
And 15 years on national TV as the
Yeah.
executive producer and host on some TV shopping
Yeah.
networks as well, and all kinds of wonderful stuff. And a couple of years ago, my amazing other half, Miss Monique, one of her friends from church said to us, they have some rental properties in East Tennessee, and they said, you guys really belong in Knoxville. And I'm like, what are we going to do in Knoxville, Tennessee? It's in the middle of the woods somewhere, right? You know, we're used to these bright lights, and it's kind of crazy. It's a whole different atmosphere, right? And so Monique and I, we both just looked at each other and said, okay, well, we've heard it enough. Let's just go.
Yeah.
And so we got here, and wouldn't you know it, we actually found a wonderful Christian lady in Northwest Knoxville that was selling her home, and it just worked out so perfectly. And there we are, and literally, you're talking about the film festival and Rise Up Con and how all that came together. That's Adam's thing, Rise Up Con, but it just happened that he happened to start that right when God asked me to start this festival. It was like,
Yeah.
but I literally. We came here without knowing anything. We had no plans, no money, no nothing. And a complete stranger pulled me up. I was at a red carpet event in Newport News, Virginia, 3 months after we moved here. Again, didn't know where I was going. Said, you were brought here to start the Knoxville Christian Film Festival to open up a much-needed avenue for creative Christians to showcase their works honoring the Lord.
Wow.
And so I called Randa Blackley, who will be a guest with you soon, a wonderful sister in Christ and an amazing actress. We did the movie with Dean Cain together called The Life of Purpose. So my last thing in Hollywood was called a movie called The Life of Purpose with Dean Cain and Eddie McClintock and Randa. And then I come here and I go, Randa, why am I here? And she said, I believe that God brought you here to elevate you to new heights of a man that he's never taken you before.
Wow.
3 months later, a stranger says, you're supposed to start this. I'm like, dude, I have no money, no contacts, no venues. And he said, I'm telling you, you are to start it tonight.
Wow.
And so July 2nd of 2024, we just put it on Film Freeway. They accepted they checked out my credentials, put us up there. And it has just been one blessing after another, which has led for me and you to be together here tonight.
It's just amazing. When you were talking, it reminds me of Abraham and how God told Abraham to go. And Abraham didn't question. He was like, Sarah, pack up, we're leaving. He just went. And so you're like, Monique, we're going, let's go. And look what he did for Abraham. He made him the father of like all these, generations. And so it's hard to tell what he will do with the film festival. So let's talk about that a little bit. Tell me what exactly the Knoxville International Christian Film Festival is.
Okay, so as I'm coming home, and I said to Randa, I said, I called her before I left Newport News, and I said, you'll never guess what I just got told, right? And she says, I don't know. I called her because she's a graphic designer as well, and I thought if she could do a logo, I could get it on Film Freeway. Well, crazy enough is that when I called her, she's like, I don't know. I know people in Knoxville that have tried that for like 15 years, and they've failed, and nobody get. And I'm thinking, I said, listen, I don't know who anybody is, all these people. I'm just new here, right? So all I know is you told me that God was going to elevate me to do things that I've never done before. Now, mind you, I've run the public and media relations for 2 professional sports teams and stuff. So it's clear that God has been setting me up for, I used to have to fill 18,000 seat arenas. So it wasn't like, and then I was the executive producer at 2 TV shopping network with staffs of 100. So it wasn't like I had no experience. Yeah. So it's like you could see looking back how God, and if he's doing it for me, he has to be doing it for you too. If you're watching right now, and every one of us, he's been planning our path for a while. The question is, have we stayed on it? I drifted a little bit doing drugs and alcohol for a while, and 5 days ago, I was blessed to celebrate 33 years clean and sober. So that's a whole nother deal. But this festival has just been one. This is how I know it's so divinely appointed. Because the guy said, so I said, Randa, I said, listen, you don't have to do the logo if you don't want. You're my sister in Christ, you're my sister no matter what, right? But at least ask him before you say no, right? Okay. And I tell you this, and she knows the story. So, but the bottom line is, is an hour later, I stopped at a rest area on the 81 freeway coming down, and I look at a text message, and she says, "My husband says I don't need to think about it. It's a no-brainer. I need to help you right away." Literally, she does a logo. I put it up on Film Freeway. I said, "God, I don't know anybody. I have no money. I don't have a venue. You're the promoter." And literally, within 5 hours after me being accepted on July 2nd, 2024, we had 20 submissions from around the globe.
Wow.
Oh, I said,
Wow.
"Lord, if you want me to do this, then we're going to introduce the Great Smoky Mountains to the world."
Yeah.
Right? And let's just make it the Knoxville International Christian Film. Well, my first like 8 or 9 submissions, China, Vietnam, Malaysia, Armenia,
Wow.
Italy, Japan, Sweden. I was like, what in the world?
Yeah.
And my first one came in from Virginia. That was the first from the United States.
Man, that's awesome. I
Yeah.
tell you, we just, like I said, he knows the big picture. We're just down here doing our little thing. I don't know. Sometimes well, I won't go into it, but anyway, I'm so thankful that he chose me to save and to work for him. It's such a blessing. I think about the
Right.
people around the world who don't even believe in God. I was talking to somebody last week and was talking about the people who die for a God who's not
Right.
even real, who will strap bombs to themselves and die for a God who's not even real. And, they don't, that's so sad they don't know the truth, but we're so blessed that we know the truth. So, yeah. So let's talk about, you brought it up, and it is a topic that you're very open about.
Yes.
Your struggle with addiction.
Yeah.
Like you said, you are now 33 years and 5 days sober. November the 29th, you
Yes.
celebrated 33
33
years.
yes.
First of all, congratulations. That
Thank
is
you.
so amazing. I don't know if you know this about me, but I have been a drug and alcohol abuse counselor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I did that job along with the mental health counselor and all that
Wow.
stuff. But I worked with that population, and to see people who not everybody is successful, and
Right.
that's sad. So to see somebody like you who is so successful, who has overcome that, has fought that battle and beat that demon, it just makes me so happy. So congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's all him to a point, and I say that because he gives us the gift of sobriety. Like those of us, like I use the 12-step program. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can use, right? As a counselor, there's not just one way. And even in the 12-step program, it talks about we don't claim to have all the answers, right, for somebody to get sober. But the point is that whatever gift he gives me, I got to do the work. Right? I say, "Lord, please help me stay sober." He's like, "Okay, well, I give you a car to get to meetings. I give you a phone to call people. I can give you a counselor like Christy or whatever, but I got to use it." Right? He's not just going to snap his fingers and go, "Okay, you'll never drink again." No, he expects us. He loves us. He gives us the words. It's kind of like you were talking about an example before. It's like if you tell me, "Man, I'm tired of walking everywhere." Right? You're a little kid and you're like, "I'm trying to walk it." So I go out and buy you a green bike for Christmas, and and I'm all excited. I'm like, "Oh, I got Christy a ride. She's going to be so excited. She can hang out with her friends now." And you look at it and go, "Green bike? Oh, I hate green. I'm not going to use that." It's like, here's the 12 steps, Rob. They've helped millions of people. You want to use them? Celebrate recovery. There's all kinds of different ways, right? But we got to do the work, and I think that's the thing. And I think one of the things about, and I know you're going to ask me about this book here, because this is about telling our story. And one of the things that has really helped me, Christy, is that I learned early on that God did not want me or any of us walking around in shame. We may be ashamed of some of the choices we made in the past. Oh, well, time to get over them or I'm going to ruin the rest of my life, right? And so at some point in life, each one of us has to put on our big boy pants or big burro pants and look in the mirror and say, "Okay, it's time for me to man up, woman up." And so this particular book right here that you asked me to bring tonight I was just out in Hollywood a couple weeks ago. Now, I got a D in English in high school, and then I became a homeless junkie, addict, because I was not I guess junkie would be needles. I was not a needles guy. Just cocaine and vodka were good enough for me. That made me homeless. And I was out in Hollywood, and I got nominated for Author of the Year in the category of personal development with this book, The Book You're Dying Not to Write. And it's all about each one of us, grab that, yes, each one of us has a story. And our story matters. Like you said, you were kind of shying away from things, but that's part of your story, right? And you mentioned at the beginning that you learned a bunch of lessons over the last couple of years because you made some different choices. But that's what got you to be here tonight, right? So you could help tell your story and me and then all your other guests. Right? Because each one of us has a story that matters. And whether you're homeless right now, whether you're just walking into a restaurant, you see us on East Tennessee TV, whatever it may be, whether you've got everything in the world, but you're living in depression and all that, your story can help another person, and if not, many. So it's not about making millions of dollars when we tell our story. It's about helping another human being have a better life.
I love that you said that. Everybody that I have on my show, and I've had people who do everything from choreography with. I had a guy on here a couple of years ago, and he does choreography with all of the big stars in Nashville. I mean, this guy knows everybody, and him and his wife have won the world title of choreographer of the year a couple of years. And I ask, I always say, what's it feel like being, and I was going to ask you that too. What does it feel like, winning these big things? And everybody says it's not about grabbing that brass ring. It's about what I do with it on my way to that award. The award is just something that you
just said that. Something went flying through me. Holy mackerel.
So I love that you have taken your pain, your testimony of, like you said, you had a D in English, and now you're an award-winning author, and so it's just so amazing how when we follow God's plan for our life, He will shift that and turn that around. All the junk that we get mired down in from the enemy, and all the things that maybe we couldn't help. You couldn't help having the D in English when you were growing up. There's reasons that we do that. I was terrible at math. I barely passed math. I barely graduated because I couldn't do math. So, but God takes all the stuff, and He just takes all the ugly and all the pretty that we have, and He just makes something out of it. And look, He's made that. Not only this, but you have 5 books out. You have 3 in a series, Cruising to Heaven. You have this one, and you have God or Coincidence.
Exactly.
Yeah, and so that's amazing, Rob. I mean, I love that you are taking your pain, because I think about the people who have testimonies who zip their lips and never share it. Who are they? Who is in their path, in their life, that will miss out because they didn't get to hear what, like, say, for example, Adam or my son Josh.
Absolutely.
They have a testimony, but they don't go tell about it. Look at the people in the Bible. The 10 lepers I talked about last week on my show, only one came back, and thanked Jesus. And like the people who go and, like the other 9, they were like, we're out of here, we're cleansed, we're out of here, and they didn't go share it. But so it's so important to share what God has brought us through, because we never know who it's going to touch. And I love that you're doing that. So
well, and here's the thing, right? So when I went up to Newport News, so this guy, I went up there because I won an award for one of my other books. It won the Adult Nonfiction Christian Book of the Year award, right? And they were having a red carpet ceremony. It wasn't a giant thing. It was just a nice little thing at a church. And the guy that ran it kept saying to me, sir, you don't need to come all the way up here. And it's an 11-hour drive from Knoxville, right? And I kept saying to my other half, Monique, said, for some reason, God is telling me to go there. And so I went there anyways, even though the guy said, I can send you your certificates and stuff like that. And I had also won we turned 3 of these books into faith-based screenplays, which are also award-winning. So the point being is that you never know how He's going to use it. So have I made millions of dollars on the book? No. What it's done is it's led to me. So I get to this place in this parking lot on a Saturday morning on April 20th of last year, and a guy comes up to me. I never met a guy in my life, a total stranger, comes up. I was in the parking lot. It was raining out, and this guy goes, before you go home, I have been given a message to give to you, and you are not to leave here until you get the message. Do you understand me, sir? And I'm like, who is this lunatic, right? And yet he was the angel that God sent. And because of the awards, so he said, sir, you are an award-winning author, screenwriter, broadcaster. You've been a member of the Screen Actors Guild in Hollywood since 1995. You are the one that I have been told needs to go home and immediately start the Knoxville Christian Film Festival. You have all the credentials in the world, and now God wants to take all of them together and you're the guy.
Wow.
See, so it wasn't just this book or that book. God used it all. As I sat there and I go, Lord, I could really use some money to eat with this book or something. And God says, I got a plan.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Yeah. Gosh, I'm going to cry.
Yeah.
Because, the guy told you don't have to come. I'll send your certificate. But had you not gone,
That's
you
right.
wouldn't have got that. Like, wow. It's just like I get choked up. So, all of your books have, and everything you do, has a theme of faith and resilience.
Yes.
What do you hope is that what you hope that the readers will carry with them? Like, anything is possible? What does resilience mean to you? What do you hope that comes across to your readers?
Well, to me, in this particular book here, right, the book You're Dying Not to Write, and the bottom line, approaching your unapproachable calling in life, right? Because how many times have you gone somewhere, Christy, and somebody has told you all these stories, and like, yeah, people keep telling me I got a book to write, right? I mean, even this one here came together. So the thing about your question is, we all matter. God created every single one of us in his image. So, but bottom line is, this whole book is about getting people to just write the first word of the book they keep putting off. Because every one of us has a story that matters. And in the end, the very last story is of a young lady named Anna, who at 38 years old passed on. And I went to her memorial service, and her brother, who I'd never met, was up on the podium, and and he said, the one thing I used to say to Anna all the time was, you have such great stories, you should write a book, And she used to say, yeah, someday, and she never got to write her book. And so I pray that if you're watching right now, your story matters wherever you are. Start writing today.
Yeah, that's what I say all the time too to people. I'm like, everybody has a story. There's people that you can touch that I can't touch.
Correct.
There's people I can touch that you can't touch.
Yep.
Amy, there's people she can touch through her books that I couldn't touch or you couldn't touch. So we all, God assigns us. There was people before us that touched us. There's people behind us that will touch. And, we all don't touch the same people, but we can all touch somebody. So you are a seasoned public speaker. It's evident you do very well. I'm so glad. Because sometimes I've had people I've struggled, trying to get an answer out of them. But anyway, so are you open to speaking and sharing your testimony? Like if somebody sees the show and they go, I want that guy to come to my church. Are you open to that? Do you do events like that?
Yes, please. Churches, venues, recovery homes, regular. I've spoken on stages with 18,000 people. So, I mean, the bigger the better, but also intimate. There's a church up here, not far from here, that just started a while back that asked me to come and speak here in, was it Blaine? I'm still getting used to East Tennessee here, folks. So, and it just happened because I met him at a restaurant a couple weeks ago with Randa and my other half because they wanted to have a meeting together, and I went with them.
And that was at the Dream War, right?
Yeah. And so and then the Dream War, holy mackerel.
Yeah.
So at Dolly's place, right down the road from here, I go there for a Bible study with some folks. And while I was waiting for the Bible study, there's a group of 4 people. There's 3 women and they're from Florida, and they were standing in front of the beautiful Christmas tree. And they looked at me and they said, how about, can we get this cowboy? Because I wear this wherever I am, anybody knows. So they said, can we get this handsome cowboy in our picture? And I take the picture with them, and they told me that they were here from Praise Fest at their church here in Sevierville that's been going on for 35 years. And they want me to come down to Ocala now and hopefully speak in the not-too-distant future in Florida. Wow. And I was doing was walking around. Actually, I was judging reviewing films for Rise Up Con.
That's awesome. And, my husband's nephew, JD, lives in Ocala, and he has submitted a film to your film festival. So So what's next for you, whether it's writing, acting, public speaking, whatever, and what's your mission in that?
I really want to do more speaking. That would really be the thing for me because God gave me messages, and one thing that I've been told is that when I do, as you said tonight, you said we can tell you're a speaker, right? I am very good at capturing. Matter of fact, I even told Adam, I said about doing a church service or something, and I was talking to somebody else. There's a meeting I'm going to have in a couple of weeks with some people that they were going to have a lot of famous people on this thing they're developing, and then they started talking to me, and they're like, well, wait a minute, I said, you can get the most famous person, but God has given me the ability to connect with people one-on-one. and make them realize their importance. And that is, I guess that would be my greatest asset, is making people realize the value. You're here doing this show because you thought, oh my God, this guy's like telling me the truth. And I don't know if he's rude or, what's he doing? And you realized it was God brought this guy, and somebody told you to come talk to me. So God had this whole thing worked out ahead of time. And so that's what I really want to do. The more speaking I can do and get out there and touch lives, because I really love looking at the tears in eyes, and I get tears watching your tears.
Yeah, I love that. I'm so blessed and so thankful that God brought you here, that he crossed our paths, and he used Adam to say, go introduce yourself to this guy. He would be a good guest on your show. And that was back in
Adam
June.
said that?
Adam did.
Oh
yeah.
my
He did.
gosh. I need a lawyer.
We were walking we were coming through the lobby. We were coming through the lobby. I was getting ready to head back in the main building. You were over in front of your backdrop, and he said, hey, go introduce yourself to Rob. He would be a good guest on your show.
Oh, thank you,
and
Adam.
so I went back in, and I came back out because you were talking to a couple people. I think it might have been Ava. It was really pretty. And I thought, well, I'll go back out there in a minute. And then I did. And that's when I just walked up to you, and I was like, hey, I'm, Christy Adams Show, East Tennessee TV. And yeah, it's just amazing. So, yeah.
And do, if you can, bless Ava Hawk, who is in South Carolina. Randa helped me with the first year of all the graphics and stuff, set everything up amazing. And Ava has taken over, and Ava's had her own challenges with health and stuff. And the fact that she is just pushing on. God has just blessed this festival with amazing servants.
Really has. I mean, it is something else. And I didn't know it at the time that the backdrop that was there was yours. So me and Amy were posing in front of it going, and that's actually my profile picture on Facebook. I'm like, why am I even in front of this film festival backdrop? But it was yours. But I just thought it was something that Adam had stuck up there. But no, it was yours. And so now, I don't know. It's just amazing. God is so amazing. And I'm just so blessed to be able to be here tonight. Thank you so much for that kick in the rear to get me jump started again. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for watching. I know you have enjoyed listening to Rob as much as I've enjoyed talking to him. We're going to put all of his links on the screen. You can see right now his website at the bottom. Everything will be at the end of the show too. All the links to Amazon, to his books. Join me again next week for another great guest. And remember that you can do all things through Christ.